So I would like to introduce Mike Nelson now. He is going to introduce the Salesforce team. And Mike is currently the New England chapter president. And he is also a veteran, as I mentioned. And he is the product documentation and training manager for KVH Industries. So now I will mute myself and Mike will introduce them. Salesforce.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Carolyn. First of all, I want to echo Carolyn's Veterans Day wishes to if there's any other veterans on the line. Thank you very much for your honorable service. Without further ado, let me speak about our first presenter of the night. It's coming from Salesforce.com, our first award winner who won an award of excellence in last year's competition. The contributors for this entry, they hail from the Washington, D.C. Baltimore chapter. And we have Lance Santin, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, the lead technical communicator, and Kellie Carter, the lead user experience researcher for Salesforce.com on this particular project. Their entry is the Customer-Centric Data Strategies Trailhead, which is an e-learning course on how to plan your enterprise data architecture with a focus on improving the customer experience. It is one of many modules of the, it's a module of the Customer 360 Data Manager Trail, of which there are many trails on the Salesforce platform for training. And Trails is basically Salesforce's very creative and fun approach to learning paths. Some of the judges' comments for this particular entry: it's a consistent and well-designed layout, and its outdoor trail theme is engaging and appealing. The Trailhead's gamification features effectively motivate learners. The content is very well written using plain language so anyone can understand it. It's easy to navigate and is 100% accessible, which is important. And its quizzes, real-world examples, and links to many additional resources promote learning. So I don't want to take up too much more time introducing it. I think we'll just let Lance and Kellie go through their project and show off their award-winning entry. Take it away.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Can everyone hear me okay? Great.
Yes.
Okay. Just a two-sentence intro. I've been with Salesforce for just about 10 years, a couple of months shy of it, and I have a lot of experience with the company writing for sales professionals, also customers who are concerned about data protection and privacy. And now I'm working on their mapping technology products. Kellie, would you give just a couple of sentences about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So I'm Kellie Carter. I work on the UX research team. I've been working at Salesforce, formerly ExactTarget, which was an email marketing platform, for about 8 years. And my primary focus has been on data products, especially sort of what we're going to be talking a little bit about here today, which is a master data management product that we wrote the Trailhead for. So sort of a little bit of expertise in data and user research.
Great.
So just to set the context for this, Salesforce is developing and has developed a new product. At the time it was developing this, we were writing this a few months before the launch of this. And so data infrastructure products cost a lot, take a lot of time, and over 60% are often judged a failure by the business. One reason for this is the fact that oftentimes data infrastructure projects are not driven by business needs. And so as part of that context is one of the reasons that we wrote this particular trailhead to begin with. Lance, can you go to the next slide? So the vision behind the project really is to provide thought leadership on how to align data management to business objectives. And sort of how this instantiates in the trailhead and the writing is that you start actually with the business use case and work backward to figure out what your data requirements are, and to have sort of and make that kind of your motivating force for how you approach a data infrastructure project, which is not always typical in a lot of the organizations that use our products. Another part of this vision is that oftentimes it takes a very highly technical expert user to do this work, and often a team of somewhere between 9 and 18 people. Our goal for the product and part of the trailhead was to start to enable more of a citizen data user, and in Salesforce we call them admins, who are our primary sort of people who use our platform to help businesses sort of use the work that we do in their day-to-day jobs. So your sales service that's out there in a B2B context, going to different locations and working their leads and opportunities, usually has an administrator sitting back in the home office sort of managing all that activity. And that admin is a key sort of user of all of our Salesforce products. So one of the key things here is that we were trying to enable admins, not just data architects or developers or infrastructure IT, to do the kind of work of creating what's called a customer data master. And finally, one of the things that we were particularly concerned about is if people don't have good data quality and have not thought through the kind of infrastructure project they want to do with the product data manager, they're going to go into red accounts, because one of the key technical functionalities here is the ability to merge customer accounts. And if you have bad data quality, or you're using email as your customer identifier over here, but not using a phone number or unique identifier in another data store, you're not going to resolve any customer records. And so you've put a lot of work and energy into setting up Customer 360 Data Manager, and you don't see any results. So we're really trying to kind of write this overall trailhead to sort of address these issues and make sure that we're really informing and providing thought leadership to our users to make sure that they didn't run into any of these problems. Lance, next slide, and I think it's you.
Yep. Okay, so I was going to talk a little bit about the format that we chose to deliver our content. Mike and Malu, they both mentioned Trailhead as a method of delivery. The reason we chose it, it's really meant for specific kinds of content. It's most ideal for customers who are in learn mode instead of do mode. So it's great for customers who know that they're setting aside time to learn about a certain kind of concept or thought leadership content. And it was our developer marketing team a number of years ago, probably about 7 years ago or so, who came up with Trailhead, which is a learning platform. And it's meant to be casual, fun, and engaging. And for customers who work through, who work through the content, they're actually earning these badges. So they're actually collecting badges they're taking quizzes, and they're also doing these, they're often doing these hands-on challenges that, after they learn about a certain concept, then they can log into a test environment, and we can challenge them to certain tasks. And if they complete those tasks, then they earn points, and it counts toward their overall completion count. So we chose Trailhead because it gives us an opportunity to tell a story, to come up with a fictitious company and some players who are a part of the company, also fictitious customers, and we are able to communicate these complicated concepts in an easy to understand story. So in the top image, that's just the home page for Trailhead. The middle one is the Trailhead module that Kellie and I wrote. And then the bottom one is actually just a glimpse of what's inside of one of the 3 units that's part of the module.
And just one quick thing, Trailhead is not our only, and so when Lance says choose, that was actually a very deliberate choice, because we have blogs, we have a lot of white papers that we produce, developer and admin or user-facing documentation, as well as sort of quick start guide areas. So we have a vast number of ways to deliver this kind of information, and we did supplement with some, and it was supplemented with white papers and other things, but this was sort of the preferred way to meet some of our key business objectives.
Thank you. Great. So I'll cover just some of the applications and different resources that we had at our disposal. When Kellie and I were developing the content, the first application that we used was just Google Docs. Google Docs was ideal for us because it's so easy to collaborate. So she was working in the document at times while I was working on it. Whenever time allowed, we just jumped in there and started kind of tackling our areas. Just things to consider if you are going to be using Google Docs is that you should be thoughtful about who has access to those drafts, and also be careful with what sort of rights you give others. So we pretty much kept ours locked down. So we gave certain people view-only access, and some people had comment access too. But anyway, it was really easy for us to come up with our drafts. And then after we came up with those drafts, after we pretty much had a good handle on the content that we wanted to publish, I then moved it into Oxygen XML editor. So one of the reasons that was helpful for us, well, for me actually, is that the Tech Docs team at Salesforce, we use Oxygen to produce our XML content. So it was super easy for me. Kellie doesn't use it. She didn't have to worry about it. But being that I was going to be the one who was going to get the content published, the XML format made good sense. Trailhead, the production process, it allowed for 2 different ways of approaching the publication process. We could use either XML, or they have an in-house sort of WYSIWYG application. But anyway, we chose XML. And some of the things to consider for that is that because it's an installed application, and I had local files, it then meant that Kellie didn't have the freedom to make changes and tweaks to things. I believe, Kellie, that you don't even have a license for it. It's really just meant for the technical writers. So, so once we got it from Google Docs into Oxygen, the collaborative nature, it got restrictive. And like I mentioned, not all departments and stakeholders have access to it because it requires a license. In our Trailhead module, we also had a small series of infographics. And we're really fortunate because we had access to in-house graphics experts. We worked particularly closely with one of them. And she was able to come up with some really great ways to communicate a lot of details in a small space. And the images that she developed along with us, they nicely complemented the content that Kellie and I crafted. So some of the things to consider when working with an in-house graphics expert is to make sure that you give those experts plenty of lead time. We have very few graphics experts, and they're supporting probably about 150 writers, maybe even more. So, so I wanted to make sure that we gave her plenty of lead time. Also, when working with her, it was definitely an iterative process. It required some back and forth, but we're quite lucky because this expert, she listened really well, and sometimes we just kind of need to see it. We need to see a version before we realized whether what she did was going to work or whether it required a little bit of tweaking. And also just being able to talk to her on video chats, it was super helpful instead of just going back and forth in email. You could clear up so much in a video call. And I want to show you a little bit about from start to finish. In the upper left, we see a picture of a whiteboard, and that was the first day that Kellie and I got together. She actually works out of our Indianapolis office, and I work out of the Portland, Oregon office. But I happen to be in Indianapolis for a different event. But we reserved some time to start brainstorming on this. So Kellie and I just started taking some notes on this whiteboard, took a couple of snapshots of it, and then to the right of that image, you can see a Google Doc, and that is the outline that we started producing, which the outline itself started changing after we got a little bit of feedback from a product manager and maybe one or two other stakeholders. And then to the right of that, we see, this is a snapshot of Oxygen, the XML editor. So this is after I got the content into Oxygen, and then below and left of that, that's the actual output in HTML from the Trailhead site. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we faced. It wasn't all so smooth. So one of the biggest challenges was managing our stakeholders. An example of that is that we had a product manager who's very well versed with the subject matter, and he had certain visions of how to communicate these highly technical concepts. And we found that it was, he had a tough time translating his vision into smaller chunks for a less technical audience. And then also, he admitted to this, that he didn't anticipate that he was going to have such a sense of ownership of the project, even though it was really, mine and Kellie's to own. It wasn't for him to worry about. So to move forward, what we did was, we found that we needed to really kind of work together, just the two of us, to try to break down some of these highly technical concepts. But we were in positions occasionally when we had to ask him certain questions. So we did try to limit it to just those specific questions that we needed help on. And then we did restrict access to our drafts until we were almost done with the content. And I wrote here that, that did have some negative consequences. At the end of the project, he was not happy that he didn't have more of a say in how it all went. So that was unfortunate. The second challenge is that we had some, we had highly technical concepts that we had to break down for a more general audience. And when you're writing about data strategies, implementing a data strategy can require data experts that most companies don't even employ. So coming up with some ideas for how to help our customers when they don't even have the staffing to come up with a data strategy, that was kind of tough. But we moved forward with that by, Kellie did a great job adapting this technical concept for a general audience who has access to few resources. We also included some best practices that would help any customer make small improvements to their data over time. Another challenge that we encountered was that, prioritization and time management, it was a struggle for us, because this was really just a side project for us. And Kellie had her own projects going on in research, and I had my own writing projects going on. And at the same time, the Trailhead development process, they have their own release schedule that's quite rigid. It doesn't stop for anyone. And there's lots of people in the Trailhead production area who have a lot of say in the way that we produce our content. So another thing about Trailhead is that they do have their own style standards and processes that often conflict with that of tech docs. So, what we did to move forward, we divided and conquered based on our areas of expertise. Kellie was really great with breaking down the concepts, coming up with meaningful best practices, and adapting the technical nature of these concepts for our intended audience. And then I spent a lot of my time just kind of crafting the writing and navigating the Trailhead release processes.
And so, so really just kind of, our most important thing was we launched it on time and I guess on budget. We didn't really have a budget, but and we were able to translate this expert content into narrative, easy to consume content for our admin audience. And we feel like we met the objective of communicating the importance of understanding business objectives for data infrastructure projects. Next slide. I think we're done here. Yes. So, and just wanted to make sure we got in on time. So thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you so much, Lance and Kellie. If anyone has any questions for Lance and Kellie on their process or any aspect of it, just unmute your phone and we'll give you a moment to think about that, and we will transition to our next presentation. Any questions or comments for Lance and Kellie while we have them here?
Hi, this is TJ Cardenas. I have a question regarding the sausage factory and the way that, could you go back and display those challenges?
Yeah. Give me just a sec. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have stopped sharing. Give me just a moment. Oh boy. Hang on just a sec.
Well, so you mentioned one of the challenges was the degree of control that the product manager had expected, and I know from my own experience at Metadata and other organizations that that does present a challenge that we're all familiar with. So, you admit, or it was agreed that it had some consequences. What were some of the workarounds that you wish you would have explored further in order to not have the result, or to change the results that possibly were implemented in other projects that you've since worked on?
Lance and I talked a little bit about this as we were preparing for this. It was kind of like the three sort of challenges were all part of the same challenge. If we had let the product owner and manager be in more in the conversations, it would have made it hard for us. He was super technical and is known as an expert in this field, going on 20 some years. And so he has particular challenges with allowing people to change language and concepts that make it different. And so he wants to have everything very technical and precise. And so as we were trying to translate this for an admin audience, and at the same time do it in this timely manner, I don't know if there were really good decisions that we could have done. We might have been able to incorporate and include him more, but we were concerned that would have pushed the timeline out or made us kind of have to fight with him over every word choice, because we've seen that happen with him before. So there was, I don't know if there was any good workaround, honestly. And I worked even more closely with this particular product manager than Lance did, but in this situation, there's kind of no way of allowing him meaningful engagement and also achieving the other goals of the Trailhead, in my opinion. So it was one of those no-win situations, and Lance unfortunately bore most of the consequences for that.
Well, thank you for sharing that information. It is a common problem, so we feel we've all worn the T-shirt. Thank you.
Thanks for explaining that, Kellie. Well put.
Anyone else with any comments?
Okay. I have one. I'm Susan Bigelow. I'm with the Terrytown Siemens Group. I'm a writer there. And I just wondered, piggybacking on the person's question whom just asked, in the end, the client was satisfied. So did that kind of ease probable or possible tensions that could have happened with the expert? Did he kind of get it in the end and understand why you chose to handle it the way you did?
Kelly, why don't you take
Yeah,
that?
I don't know if he, at the end, we did a retrospective, and he a little bit finally understood that this was not his thing to control, that we were the experts in this area, and that he needed to have pulled back. He did admit that. I'm not sure if he learned that. Because he's a little bit of he's very passionate about the area, and he's very passionate about customers doing this well and enabling on this. And sometimes that passion made him more controlling than he should have been. So he did admit that, but I'm not sure if that was carried on as a learning for him, or if it was just kind of, when we presented, here were our choices and here's the choices that we made, and you were being too involved. So he admitted it, but I don't know if he learned it.
Real quick question: does the fact that you won an award of excellence, ameliorate this any at all?
I don't know if we told him.
Please tell him.
Yes, please tell him.
I don't know if we told him.
Because his work is an extension of him, I don't think that he would find much comfort knowing that this work won an award.
Oh, gee.
I don't know about that. He likes to see awards. He just likes to also win. So those two things are a little conflicting, but But no, we haven't been working with him as closely in the last few months after the award was announced. So I'll have to let him know. I hadn't even thought to let him know.
You're an award-winning author, and he contributed
Right.
to an award-winning entry, award-winning material. Yeah. All right. Anyone else for Lance and Kelly before we let them off into their freedom?
I just, this is TJ again, and I apologize. I just wanted to compliment the hierarchy of how you presented, starting with the context, the vision, the format, the applications, the brainstorming, and then getting into the sausage factory. I said, that was really well done. Thank you so much. It was authentic, it was honest, and I really loved it.
Thanks a lot, TJ.
Thank you.
You can
Appreciate
all
it.
go see their entry if you want. If you go to the Salesforce page, this presentation page in the Roadshow site, the Roadshow page, which is on the stcnymetro.org website, you can just go to that Trailhead and look at it yourself.
Yeah, and you don't
There's a
have to be
link.
a customer of Salesforce to use Trailhead, because it's meant to help people learn skills to become Salesforce admins, or utilize the platform. So feel free to check it out if you're interested, because there's some fun stuff there to sort of learn how to configure data models and things on the platform. So feel free to sign up.
Excellent. So